The nutrition label is just, it almost feels like it's meant to confuse customers. One of our core values at OWYN when it comes to our brand values here, it's transparency. That's our mission. We're here to clean up the space and we're here to have the industry adopt our standards.
Hi, I'm Jason Harris and you're listening to Soul and Science. Fast forward your marketing mind in about 20 minutes. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today I'm speaking with Julia Perez, CMO at the plant-based nutrition company OWYN, which stands for Only What You Need. Julia is a New York-born, Miami-based marketing executive with a truly impressive understanding of high-growth, healthier-for-you food and beverage startups. With more than 10 years of experience working for brands like Red Bull, RSP Nutrition, and Core Water, it's actually kind of her, superpower. Her continued success in the health and wellness space led her to the role at OWYN, which is currently the #1 best-selling plant protein shake in the US. In this episode, you'll learn how OWYN has differentiated itself in a pretty saturated market by cleaning up the sports nutrition industry with transparency, education, and an empowering message. You'll hear Julia's take on the Ozempic trend and how OWYN protein shakes fit in. You'll get a good reminder on why you can't forget the big picture when looking at your segmented data, and you'll learn about the value of being an early adopter and in love with your industry, just like Julia is. All right, let's dive right in. I want to know a little bit about your origin story, how you found your way into marketing and how you found your way into the sort of fitness and wellness space.
Sure. So I grew up in the Hudson Valley in New York, about an hour and a half from Manhattan. I was a figure skater and a competitive cheerleader later on. So athletics and that discipline was always a very important part of my upbringing. I spent most of my weekends at a convention center or when I was younger, a figure skating rink. So I think that has a lot to do with my love for athleticism and fitness and wellness today. For as long as I can remember, I wanted to live in New York City. I think just like growing up in the shadow of the city, it's just like, where else do you go, right? I always knew that I was going to eventually be there. So right out of college, I made it my mission in college to make sure that I had all of the right internships and spent my summers commuting into the city for those internships and then landed at a boutique digital agency. And it was there that they were really the pioneers of what influencer marketing is today. And back then there was no name for it.
What was the agency called?
The agency is called ICE Media.
ICE, okay.
And they still do great work today. I was interning there and then was hired out of college. They created a role for me that hadn't existed before called partnerships manager. And my role was to align all of our brands with what they were called at the time, if you can believe it, was just bloggers. There wasn't really an influencer marketing space at the time. And it was kind of like figure it out as you go along and be entrepreneurial and align these clients with influential figures across multiple social platforms and blogging.
So what makes Julia? What do you think your unique talent is?
Yeah. And Jason, I love this question. I think it's so great because as I was moving through the ranks, in marketing and becoming more senior, I had this idea that I just had to be fabulous at absolutely everything. And while it's great to cut your teeth in multiple different verticals in marketing, you really do have to know where your roots are. Every CMO brings a different strength and has different roots. And with that, my superpower is really deeply understanding influence, true influence, not just how many followers someone has in a swipe up link, but deeply understanding influence and how it impacts and creates trends. And then how to give a brand, moving forward from that, how do you give a brand an it factor and buzz? Because let's face it, you need to understand how to do that if you're going to market a water bottle or a allergy-free protein shake. So you really need to understand it factor, and it's not tangible. It's not really something you can teach. I believe it's half innate and then half something that maybe you can learn and get better at. And my earlier roots in influencer marketing certainly have helped. But it also goes back to what I was doing when I was younger, when I was in junior high, and everyone thought I was weird for posting on MySpace. And then on LiveJournal, Blurty Journal, whatever it was at the time, it's really just understanding how people connect with one another. And I've always had a knack for that. I've always loved it and been fascinated with this idea of you can brand anything and you can brand yourself. So it's sure helped a lot.
What are you trying to do with OWYN that you feel is really shaking up the category?
In general, this sports nutrition category has really been a category that architects a lot of confusion for most customers. The nutrition label is just, it almost feels like it's meant to confuse customers.
Right.
One of our core values at OWYN, when it comes to our brand values here, it's transparency. We have a lot of educational content that shows consumers how to read a nutrition label, how to calculate net carbs. We do a lot of education on our SMS and email channels where we have our registered dietitian weighing in about why certain ingredients have a bad rap, but maybe they necessarily shouldn't. So you can see the theme here is transparency and education. So we are really trying to clean up the space. There are so many of our competitors that unfortunately market themselves as clean and healthy, and they're not something that I would want to give to a loved one or a friend because the ingredients are just not great. So we feel really passionately. I mean, that's our mission. We're here to clean up the space, and we're here to have the industry adopt our standards.
That has changed now. The space is much more about, as you say, transparency and education. You can't really hide what's in the bottle. You've got to really put it out front and center. So I think the timing of OWYN with the market, zeitgeist, I think is absolutely right. And I think that's why you've seen such success. I will give a plug to No Nut Buttercup as my absolute favorite.
I'm drinking it right now.
I think that's the one for me because I branched out. I tried other flavors as well, but I came back to that one. That one's my favorite. I think you can taste it too. It tastes like there's not a lot of anything in there that's artificial or shouldn't be in there. You can actually taste it. It's not just the packaging in the bottle.
Yeah, it doesn't taste fake.
With the introduction of, so-called miracle products like Ozempic, they're supposed to be diabetic products, but they're being prescribed for actually fit people that want to lose 10 extra pounds or 15 extra pounds and use that as a hack or a shortcut. Do you think that's a trend that will continue? How do you even think about it?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be trends out there that come into our space and, market themselves as quick fixes. I mean, we saw it with diet pills, juice cleanses, keto, and now Ozempic. And the truth is there's no quick fix. It might be a quick fix for a while. But what I find really interesting, because of course I've been following the science, being a fitness and nutrition buff, and then obviously the CMO at OWYN here. So I've been following it really, really closely. And what's happening is when people are losing weight that rapidly and in an unnatural way, they are losing a muscle tone rather than just, getting a fat loss, which is what you would get if you're lifting weights and eating healthy. So when you're losing weight that quickly, you're losing your muscle. And obviously from an aesthetic standpoint, that's the last thing that you want. It goes against what people are looking for when they're looking for that toned physique. So as a result, dietitians who are prescribing the Ozempic have actually been prescribing high protein diets. So that's where OWYN can come in if it's someone who is on Ozempic, because it can be quite challenging, especially to someone who has not gone through the long-term way of doing things. And they realize, not only do I have to be getting, let's say 100 grams of protein a day, which is already challenging, but now that I'm on this Ozempic plan, I have to have even more protein in order to not lose that muscle. It's very challenging to do. So when you think about products like OWYN, that can actually be major for them to be able to see the results that they want on Ozempic. And at the end of the day, we're not selling a physique at OWYN. We're really selling a healthy lifestyle. And that's something long-term that's going to affect your whole life, not just the way you look in the mirror.
All right. Without spilling any secret sauces, what are one or two key tactics that you have found that has really skyrocketed your growth?
So we can start with just the way we speak to our customers. At OWYN, we take a very empowering approach to the way that we speak. So our copywriting, our messaging and our ads, things of that sort. We always want to make our customers feel like the hero. And this is almost a rebellious act in the sports nutrition category, where so much of the marketing and the copywriting really preys on the insecurities of the consumer. And it's as simple as changing messaging from ditch the sugar to saying to a customer, we know you're not the type, we know you're the type to think about your sugar consumption. So you're reframing it and you're making this customer feel like the hero. It's a positive feedback loop. So they feel proud when they select OWYN. They want to tell people about selecting OWYN. And I think that's something that, in our industry, especially selling the product that we're selling, can really make all the difference in the way the consumer feels when they're selecting the product. And then next, we invest pretty heavily in education. And again, noting that one of our brand values is transparency and truthfulness, this makes a lot of sense for us to invest here. So we actually have an in-house registered dietitian as a part of a function of our marketing team. So when you see emails, when you see SMSs go out from the brand, you know that she is either writing them or at the very least, she's approving them. And the same goes for our blogs. We don't use Chat GPT to write our blogs. Using AI as a function of, a tool is one thing, but we don't have blog posts about the importance of a low sugar diet being written by a robot. If we're using it as a tool, that's one thing, but everything is approved, every single thing, by our registered dietitian, and the consumers know that. We often have times where she will sit in on our two-way SMS and answer customer questions. They know that our registered dietitians are a resource. We work with a medical advisory board that advises us on our products as they come out, new nutrition research. So everything's done with that really strong structure in place for our education and science.
How did you develop your target audience strategy? Because it is a crowded space. A lot of brands are advertising and marketing in different ways. How did you land on the audience you were going to serve? Because it all comes back to the audience at the end of the day. And how did you determine who you were going to talk to?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when you look at our space and you look at our direct competitors, there are brands that have a reputation in the medical space, right? And you can kind of think about who those brands are. And then you also think about some of the consumer facing brands that perhaps you've seen some of your favorite athletes post about, or you've seen the advertising at different sports events. But you have not really seen a brand in this space combine the two. So a brand that has combined medical and a brand that has combined consumer cool factor, you can say. And I think OWYN's really the first to do both and to combine both. And when you think about our roots, we have very, very strong medical roots. Our product was actually created, one of our founding members, his son lives with a very severe food allergy. And the product was created we're actually top 9 allergen free. So we third-party test all of our products for the top 9 allergens. It's a very rigorous process. It is not cheap. It's not easy to do. And that's a commitment we've had from the beginning because we also realize that in the allergy-friendly space, there are very few brands that are cool brands. Again, going back to the cool factor, badge brands. And no one with a GI disorder or a food allergy wants to carry around a product that says, look, I have a medical challenge. And they shouldn't have to, right? And then two other insights into our target market. We know that women were not traditionally, it's a little bit better now, but a few years ago when the brand was created, it's mostly a male consumer who these products are marketing towards. We know that women are drinking more protein, women are getting more involved in gym culture. But then also protein isn't just for the gym. Protein is a healthier snack. Protein is arguably the most essential macronutrient that we can have for that toned physique, great energy. And then, another item when it comes to why this product was created, thinking about our target market, consumers and, growing gut concerns. We know gut health is huge right now, and food allergies. Unfortunately, it's not slowing down. Every single day, there are more food allergies. There are more gut concerns. I'm sure you can think of a handful of friends, family, acquaintances that that have to follow certain diets because of whether it's, a gut disorder or an allergy. This is not slowing down. And in our space, it wasn't being addressed. So it's a really a number of different audience insights and that, why OWYN was created.
How do you find as CMO a balance between talking about what's inside that matters and, it's green blends, low carb, allergen free, as you mentioned. How do you talk about those functional benefits versus, it also tastes awesome?
I mean, I think that any brand any product is going to say that they taste great. So to me, finishing an ad or starting an ad where it's all about the taste, I don't know if this is the product that, that type of thing makes sense for. In the way that I look at it is we start with the functional benefits and then consumers stay for the great taste. And this can be challenging for us because it is such a it's such a healthy drink. And you look at some of our competitors and they have like sugary cereal and chocolate, being poured everywhere. And it's like this super indulgent photography style. And it can be challenging because that's what we're up against. And of course, consumers want something that looks tasty and ignites their senses. And we're actually playing around with that right now. We're doing a series of tests to try to figure out how can we showcase taste, but at the same time, be true to our brand value of transparency and truthfulness. How do we do that? Because it's quite challenging. And on our bottles, we can have a little bit more fun with the flavor cues because I think you really need to communicate to the customer what the flavor is. Like, for example, Jason, you mentioned that your favorite flavor is no nut butter cup. Well, that's a different flavor than peanut butter cup because we don't use peanuts. So how do we explain that? We almost have to show, a mock peanut butter cup to explain this is what this is. Cookies and creamless is another flavor. Okay, because we don't have cream because we're dairy-free, vegan. But we had to put, a cookie to show people what it is or else they would be confused. But there is a really delicate balance. But we have an amazing return rate that we've seen through D2C, Amazon, and our retail data. So the way we think about it, they are attracted to us from the functionality standpoint, and then they stay because it tastes incredible.
Do you find that do they have a flavor and stick with it, or do they do like the variety packs and always mix it up, or do you guys have that data? I'm just curious.
Yeah. They definitely mix it up. I think they try, like, the variety pack is one of our our largest SKUs with the best retention, you can say.
Yep.
Because I think that they get to try multiple different flavors, and we're always pushing that, because the thing with OWYN that I haven't seen with other brands that I've worked on that have different flavors, whether it's a beverage or a snack, there really is not, we really don't have a flavor where it's like, this is the flavor we don't talk about. And
Right,
that's
right.
not, and I think in our industry, that's uncommon. It really just depends. You ask anyone what their favorite flavor is, and it totally runs the gamut. So we, we inspire customers to start with the variety pack and then choose their favorite from there. But the data, honestly, it's all over the place. And this is where you get to the soul and science, debacle. But it's all over the place. Chocolate is our best selling. The dark chocolate 20 grams are best selling SKU. And then probably to follow would be one of the variety packs.
Okay. What's your favorite flavor?
Again, like it really just depends on my mood. Sometimes chocolate. I mean, I like them all, but chocolate, cookies and cream, cold brew, and no nut buttercup.
All right. I got to try that. Cold brew sounds good. Because you brought up soul and science, do you find when you're making decisions, do you rely more on, gut instinct or the data from your customers in making, plotting out your marketing strategy?
The thing with data is that if you look too closely at data, you're missing the way that the reality of the way things happen. So if we think about, okay, our best selling SKU is the chocolate 20 gram. Well, is that the first SKU that comes up on the product landing page? Is that the SKU that is most available at retail? I mean, there's always so many questions. Is that because we're not pushing the variety pack enough? So that's my watch out with data. And it's funny because the more senior and experienced that I've become, the more that I go back to looking for the soul.
Uh-huh.
And you would think it would be the opposite because I'm becoming more experienced with understanding data, and really getting to know it. But I actually look more for the soul, and I always try to verify the data with the soul questions, like the ones I just mentioned. I think what we have going for us at OWYN is we have a very balanced leadership team, where there's a great mix of soul thinkers, you can call it, and then also really, really data focused thinkers. So we're lucky to have that. I think it helps a ton.
You've been in the wellness marketing space for a while. Do you have any techniques on how you keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening?
Put yourself in the consumer's shoes. And this really goes back to the soul. It's just constantly putting yourself in the consumer's shoes and really simplifying it. I think, I've said this before, but as marketers, we tend to overcomplicate things. And it's really just going back to, where the consumers are playing, where they're hanging out, and putting yourself into their shoes. So personally, I try to be an early adapter at all the platforms that I mentioned. So I spend time on TikTok. I spend time creating some of the content on my personal TikTok, listening to podcasts constantly, really being a consumer of that content. Same thing with other brands. So exploring brands in the space that are like-minded brands, purchasing them on D2C, purchasing them at retail, trying them out. You're only going to win here if you are a consumer of this world and really putting yourself into the consumer's shoes. And I really encourage everyone on my team to really do the same and to just be in love with the industry. That's the only way you're going to really understand.
What's an unpopular, perhaps, but important decision that you've made as CMO?
So I wouldn't call it 100% unpopular, but maybe people were very skeptical about it. So when I first came into OWYN, and this is about 2 years ago before TikTok, it was like the early Wild West days of TikTok. But I came in the first 30 days, I was getting to know everyone. I looked at our budget and saw the influencer marketing spend. And I noticed that all of it was being spent on Instagram. And I made the decision that we're going to cut 100% of our Instagram influencer marketing spend and bring it over to TikTok. Now things have changed in the past 2 years. So we're in the process of moving things around right now, because I do think that TikTok is experiencing a change in, the way creators and fans engage in the platform. But 2 years ago, it was an unpopular decision. It ended up really benefiting us. If you search hashtag LiveOWYN on TikTok, you'll find over 16 million different video views. It's LiveOWYN and OWYN Ambassador. Those are the two hashtags. And we even had Lizzo find OWYN from a fan video that was posted to TikTok. And Lizzo saw the video as like a recommendation to try OWYN, went out, purchased OWYN, and then created a video of an OWYN taste test. So pretty cool to see that. And then her caption's even better. It said, TikTok is the only way I do my grocery shopping these days.
Oh,
I
love that.
mean, talk about like a case study, and also just like, you know, that check mark on why brands should take TikTok seriously for their brand awareness. So that was fun.
All right. What are some of your role models that maybe helped you either personally or professionally?
If I had to name one role model, I would go back to my last boss at Core Water. And when I think about the successes that he's had in his journey, to name a few, 3 exits in emerging, fast growing food and beverage brands. When I think about, his career success, it's incredible. But what's even arguably more important is the way that he approaches his personal life. And I've always admired that he's a very active father. He takes time to, go on great vacations with his family. And overall, he's just a very normal person, despite having success that's anything but normal. And I find that can be quite rare. So, he's been a huge part of my story. And when I think about the life that I want to live, I do think about him.
All right. Shout out. Do you have a favorite quote or mantra that is recurring or that you think about?
Never waste a good crisis.
Ooh.
And I just, through some of my toughest times in my career so far, they have been nothing but amazing opportunities. And I think it gives us that silver lining on those hard days and those hard moments. And the truth is that we don't always learn from success, but we should always learn from failures or setbacks. And in being able to learn from those hard times, they're actually less likely to be considered bad when you look back and realize what you've learned.
That is so good to think about in the moment, because you get the muscle memory of knowing, all right, I know what I'm in now, and I know it's going to end up better on the other side. I have to figure out how to get through it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great one. What's an outstanding Julia Perez life goal that you want to accomplish?
Would be to start some type of platform or give back initiative based on inspiring and empowering other women, and specifically women who are interested in entering the C-suite. And I say this because there are several resources out there for women who want to become entrepreneurs. And while I think that's fabulous, there really wasn't too much information for me when I realized that I wanted to be a part of the C-suite. And there's definitely a gap there. So I want to let women know that you don't have to necessarily have fancy degree or an MBA or come from a pedigreed background to make it and get into the C-suite. I think there's definitely some more information that needs to get out there, and I'd love to get behind it.
I love that. I feel Julia Perez book coming.
I'd love that. We'll see. I do love to write.
That's coming. All right. Describe your business style in one word.
Trailblazing. Damn. And I say that because trailblazing is a core corporate value that we hold at OWYN. But growing up I really only worked in high growth emerging companies. I've never really worked in a super corporate environment. And for me, I feel like it just gives me so much energy. I need to personally have constant momentum, constant change. I need to see that the changes that I'm putting out there are affecting the business. And then, when you think about a trailblazer, it's someone who's constantly looking ahead, who's pleasantly unsatisfied and is always looking for more. So as soon as we have a project going on at OWYN or something we're testing, I'm constantly looking at what's next. How do we evolve this and make it bigger? How do we test something on top of the test once we figure out the results? What's next? How do we scale? It really gives me a lot of energy, and it might not be for everyone, but absolutely trailblazing.
Where can people find out more about Only What You Need or OWYN and find out more about you?
You can find OWYN on various social platforms at Live OWYN, LIVEOWYN. You can find me, Julia Perez, on LinkedIn. And then on my social channels with, make sure to spell Perez with 3 Z's.
Perez.
Julia Perez without 3 Z's was taken.
Oh, right. Of course it was. All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. It's going to be a great episode. And I know people are going to learn a lot.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for having me.
Soul and Science is a Mechanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, Tyler Nielsen, Emma Swanson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.